Welcome back to the MR0 Challenge. This is episode 4. Last week we progressed with goal number 2, obtaining the railjack, and moving on to our third goal, the amp. If you like what you're watching, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and left feedback on my video. It takes a ton of work to make these and it really helps me out a lot if you do. And if you want to see me do the challenge live, my Twitch is in the description and I'll also be live right here on YouTube too. Now, admittedly, the amp is pretty simple to get. It's actually just straight up free. However, it's what I'm getting before the amp that's much more important. At the end of the last video, I talked about a mystery mod that'd be integral in improving my power level. Along with that mod, there's also a few other things I want to pick up to improve. First things first though, the mystery mod. The mod is Fracturing Crush. Now you might be wondering, hey Cloy, if you can't unlock syndicates because they're locked behind mastery, how'd you get an augment mod? The circuit in Duviri is how. Duviri's circuit game mode works on a rotation. Each week, the circuit features 3 different warframes and a 10-node track that allows you to get all 4 parts for one of the 3 warframes. You also get some other resources too, but that's not what I'm focused on here. This week, Mag was in rotation, which means at rank 7 in the circuit, I would also unlock her augment, Fracturing Crush. Before we head into Duviri though, I'm just gonna go complete the Sedna Junction real quick. The sentient enemies goal was pretty trivial, and having obtained my boat from the last video, the Rising Tides quest was already done. This'll be easy.
A projectile? Oh. Oh my god! The toxin's killing me! What the?
Oh. Oh, that, wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry. Okay, let me try again.
Okay. I'm not messing around anymore. Oh my god, what the heck?
Okay, one more time.
Bro, die! What the heck? Oh my god.
There we go. Not even close. It's time for Duviri. First off, we're going to have to complete the Duviri Paradox quest. It involves the Drifter, an older version of the Operator, trying to escape the time-traveling paradox of Duviri. The Drifter wanders around, collecting pieces of a figurine that lead to a way out. In the end, the Tenno assist in helping the Drifter out of the paradox, giving them their freedom.
We did it!
Woohoo! Now that the quest is completed, it's time to get into the circuit game mode. As you can see here, the Fracturing Crush augment is the 7th reward I can earn. So let's get started. On my first run, I make it a third of the way to the goal, reaching the 5th wave before I got overwhelmed by how difficult the defense is.
Got to tier 3, that's huge.
The next stream, I do another run. Due to a combination of bad decrees and skill issue? Really? I wrote that in the script? Anyway, I die more than a few times during the alchemy, unfortunately failing the mission. Luckily, it still keeps all of my progress up to that point, and having done a handful of missions before then, another third of the grind is through. With my next run making it to wave 5, I complete all of the circuit levels that I need. And just like that, I obtain Fracturing Crush. I go ahead and level it up, tossing it onto my mag and making a few other changes and upgrades. My next prerogative is to advance in the railjack star chart. This may seem rather useless, but I found that one of my best methods of obtaining both credits and endo is going to be railjack missions. So my next objective is to get there. Specifically, I'm looking to get to the Veil Proxima, which will contain the highest amount of credit and endo rewards. Before I can go cruising around in my ship, blowing up galleons and fighting off ramsled enemies jumping onto my boat, I'm gonna need a crew to call my own. I head over to Ticker and pick up some sturdy crewmates, a solid pilot that I'll definitely reassign later, a decent gunner that totally fails to actually kill the ramsleds before they get to my ship, and an engineer. There's nothing wrong with the engineer, they're actually pretty useful. I focus on leveling up my command intrinsic first, as I'll need to be able to have all 3 crew members to maximize my ability to actually beat the railjack missions. Throughout my first few missions, I definitely realized that I'm going to need the other intrinsics as well, as they just provide so much quality of life. I decided around rank 4 in each would be good, while I would go for rank 5 in command. Later down the line, my intent would be to potentially pick up higher ranks in the command intrinsic, as the on-call crew would be super beneficial in late game missions, and being able to hire elite crewmates could be useful for the actual missions in Railjack themselves. Between missions, I make a habit of upgrading my intrinsics, my Railjack mods, and improving my crewmates, slowly getting more powerful as I run through the Earth missions fairly easily. However, there's one mission on each of the Corpus planets that's particularly difficult compared to every other mission: Orphix. I was in no way prepared to beat most of the Orphix missions, and it was quite a struggle as I pressed on through the planets. I also used this time to forma my mag and bow, grabbing a bit of affinity while painfully trying to beat railjack missions with no mods. Soon enough, Earth Proxima is done. Now it's on to Venus. A few missions in, and it's time for our first Orphix mission. Or it would be if I actually had it unlocked.
You actually might be right. It's Orphix, and I can't do that because I haven't seen that yet. Oh no!
So we may have to do the War Within quest before we can progress any further. Let's get into it. We discover Teshin doing some suspicious stuff on Lua, and we trace him back to a mysterious place we've never seen before, which ends up being the Kuva Fortress, home to the twin Grineer Queens. As it would turn out, Teshin was actually working for them. Our operator gets forced out of our warframe, dropped off on a cold mountain. Teshin guides us through our past, exploring how we got here and why the Grineer Queens captured our warframe and Teshin. We eventually go back, helping free Teshin from the grasp of the Queens and killing the Elder One in the process. The War Within is complete. Now it's Orphix time. It's not the worst thing ever. I pick up a necromech from the floor of the vessel and use it to destroy some creepy sentient thingies. I didn't really realize at the time that I could just use my own necromech, as I had neglected to put it on my gear wheel. I'd get into that later once the missions got more difficult, but for now, the Mausolon on this rental is good enough. After finishing Venus, I had enough intrinsics to get some upgrades, getting a decent chunk towards my goal. However, having no ranks in engineering meant that I wouldn't even be able to craft dome charges, which was going to be essential later. After Venus, I head on over to Saturn Proxima. Luckily, there aren't any Orphix missions over here, it was just a handful of normal missions. Unfortunately though, it was a bit of a rocky ride, but we make it through. Then it was time to head back to Corpus planets, starting with Neptune Proxima. There's one Orphix mission on Neptune and one Orphix mission on Pluto. We'd have to complete both to reach our goal of Veil Proxima. More importantly though, we take a short break. Chat was very adamant that we acquire Clem Spectres for late game use as well, so we head over to rescue Darvo's contractor. Completing the missions, we begin crafting 5 Clem Spectres.
Oh my god, I only have one blueprint. Well, we're gonna be. Oh my god, it takes 8 hours? Okay, well, we're gonna be happy with 1 or 5 clems for now.
Now, back to our regularly scheduled program. My first try on the Neptune Orphix mission goes about as expected. Even with the upgraded railjack gear, it didn't matter much, as it was mostly dependent on how strong my necromech was to defeat them. I got absolutely steamrolled. This, though, is where I realized I could actually just bring my own necromech that had an arc gun with better mods. Another try. Unlike last time, this time around I was nearly able to beat the mission, just narrowly running out of time before taking down the last Orphix. I knew I was going to need a little more power in my arc gun. Having gotten a singular arc gun mod to boost my cold damage, I give it a third try, and thankfully I make it through, crushing the strained sentience. Considering my slight struggle with Saturn, I determined that some upgrades were necessary to take on Pluto Proxima. I rank up my engineering intrinsics, and overnight I craft myself some new weapons to trivially wipe out the Corpus ships. Then we immediately head into Pluto's Orphix mission. Off stream, I had gotten one more arc gun mod to improve my crit chance, and it was easily enough to destroy the silly sentience there. With that, I beat the rest of Pluto Proxima, landing me into the Veil Proxima, my final goal. Afterwards, I head over to Cetus to pick up my amp. Finally.
From memories of a past that is yet to be, the unknown knows you as a terror to the Eidolons. This has been waiting for you, to deliver upon them a terrible ruin. We have had and shall have a long association, Demo. I know our conversations well, Shola.
So, with all of that out of the way, I take my boat for a spin in the Veil. Now, let's discuss my next game plan. With my third goal of the amp being completed, it was time for the fourth and final goal before we actually get into Warframe's late game. What's that, you might ask? Questing. There's a few more quest prerequisites before we get into the new war. Along with that, I'm going to start work on achieving some really difficult to obtain mods to finalize the builds I'm trying to get. This mostly involves me buffing up my staff and my mag. Join me next week for the 5th episode of the MR0 Challenge, where we'll be completing the new war and getting into the real hard content. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. I do still have music being worked on, so don't you worry.